is the International Year in Sports 86, and it does seem like we say this about every year, but this has been another special year. I'm Dale Hansen, and in this next hour, you'll see again why sports play such an important part in everyday life. We live in a world where governments put up borders and barriers between us as people, but the people who play the games tear those barriers down. It's the personalities that make sports special in our lives. A Jack Nicklaus at Augusta, a Willie Shoemaker in Kentucky, with a great Maradona in Mexico City. And it's those great stories in sports we'll share with you this next hour. So many of us wait till January to finish last year's business, and the NFL works the same way. It was January 26th when the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots met in New Orleans in Super Bowl 20. The Eyes had it. The black and blue Eyes, the Chicago Bears hammered out in one of the most lopsided championships in NFL history. Rarely has one team so dominated its competition as the Bears did in this game and the season that preceded. Super Bowl 20 in New Orleans, the New England Patriots trying to match Chicago's fierce kamikaze style. And with the Bears going along, at first it almost worked.
I tell you, it started off a little rough. I screwed up. I called the wrong play when Wally fumbled. That was my fault. And other than that, I think we played pretty well on offense. Oh, there's supposed to be a slant play, but to the other side, and I just had a mental lapse, early in the ball game. Just one of those things that shouldn't have happened and did, and we just overcame it.
But if anything brought the Bears out of their January slumber, it was Patriot hands turning colder than a New England winter. For all of their early heroics, the red, white, and blue could only manage an early field goal. The three-pointer was soon matched, and it foretold of the coming avalanche. If one word described these Bears, it would be diverse. Off the field, they shuffled through the regular season, each seemingly marching to his own beat. But once on the field, the transformation occurred, and they became one, a team. Jim McMahon would defy his coach, Bears management, and the NFL. But his ability earned his teammates respect in the game's most valuable player award. But perhaps the biggest celebrity in this game, refrigerator William Perry, a wasted draft choice 6 months before. But his touchdown put the Patriots in the deep freeze.
Oh, yes, that was H-44 off the left side, and Coach Dickens called that play, and I was just overwhelmed about it when he called it. I was so happy because I thought I was going to get out there and block for Walter and just knock another linebacker down.
Under the guidance of defensive genius Buddy Ryan, Chicago's defensive crew evoked memories of the days of Dick Butkus. Warned during the season for trying to knock quarterbacks not just down, but out. These were the most feared men in football. Nothing, it seems, could make a Chicago Bear wince, except the memory of Papa Bear George Halas, the founder of this team and the NFL's winningest coach. Although he died 3 years before his team would reach this championship, the brand of football was definitely his. And it is his legacy that will always be this team's signature. Looking like a child among men, quarterback Tony Yeason was no match for the black and blue. He soon gave way to veteran Steve Grogan, but the results were the same. There was no mercy. So in the end, it was almost a surrender. 210 years after the revolution, the Patriots had finally given up. Mike Ditka had begun the season unsure of his future in Chicago. But after a nearly flawless season, there were no questions left to answer. The Chicago Bears, 1986 Super Bowl champions. It's a common practice for those in the United States to call their professional champions world champions. They officially claim that title. But one that can is World Cup soccer. There is no greater spectacle in international sport than the World Cup. 1986 witnesses one of the finest finals ever. France and Brazil meet in this quarterfinal, and France's Platini ties this match at 1. A match plagued with a fierceness that produces more than its share of penalties. That goal, it is the French advancing on a penalty kick, and what a shot it is. Leaves the Mexico City audience gasping.
Maradona turns like a little eel and comes away from trouble. Little squat man comes inside Butcher, leaves him for dead. Outside Fennick leaves him for dead and puts the ball away. And that is why Maradona is the greatest player in the world.
England is the opponent in this quarterfinal match. But 4 years after the Falkland War, it is the British who are undermanned by Argentina's great weapon. Down 2-0, England is able to get on the scoreboard. But on this day, 1 goal means elimination. The other great personality in this tournament is West Germany's Rummenigge. Boris Becker, his on-the-field style has the German people cheering again. France has its superstar on grass, too. He is Platini. The true superstars never watch the clock, but this goal is disallowed by a foul, and it is West Germany defeating France to gain entry into the final. The other semifinal is between Argentina and Belgium, and the second half belongs to Maradona again. His scoring helped the South Americans reach the finals again. And the final is pure theater. Some will say later that it is one of the best ever played in a World Cup championship. And apparently the only way the West Germans can stop Maradona is to foul. With a chance to take a 2-0 lead, the Argentinians miss on the free kick. Maradona with the pass to Enrique, and Argentina has a 2-0 lead. The West Germans managed to come back to tie the 1986 World Cup Championship.
Links. Anlauf. Peter nochmal da. Völler schaut. Das Zunächst einmal Völler mit dem Tor durch Rummenigge. 1:2. Zunächst einmal Völler mit dem Kopf.
Von der Eckfahne werden auf, um diesen Ball abzufangen. Er muss natürlich noch wieder abziehen.
But again, Argentina's Maradona manages a pass and breakaway for the South Americans' Barushka, scoring the winning goal. And Argentina celebrates another World Cup championship. These great shots have been provided to us exclusively from the soon-to-be-released film of the 1986 World Cup. hero. Maradona is certainly one of those international superstars and personalities we talked about earlier. There are so many more. Many of them gather in Indianapolis, Indiana in May. Mario Andretti, A.J. Foyt, and many of the greatest drivers in the world of the Indy 500. We'll be going 200 miles an hour when we come back on the International Year in Sports 86. They call it the greatest spectacle in racing, and when it was over, Bobby Rahal would outrace some of the sport's marquee names and win the Indy 500 in record time. Never has anyone gone faster at Indy. One of those racing superstars is Rick Mears, the man who set the Indy speed record in 1984, averaging 163 miles an hour. In 1986, he wins the pole position. Hoping for his 47th career win is Mario Andretti. Son Michael is a contender, too. Another one of the great names in racing is Unser. Big and Little Al make this a true family sport. Also qualifying four-time winner A.J. Foyt. And the oldest driver in 86, Dick Simon. On the first day of the time trials, Bobby Rahal in the Budweiser car qualifies. But for Mario Andretti, it isn't so easy. This accident forces him to a backup car. The 1986 Indy 500 will also be remembered for this: the endless days of rain. Finally, after a week's delay that seems more like a month for the drivers, it is race day. The early leader is Michael Andretti. Long wait, but an early departure for Tom Sneva. Mario Andretti's day ends early, too, and the yellow flag brings Rick Mears, the new leader, into the pits. Mears leads the race for 77 laps. For A.J. Foyt, lap 15 is his final one. The final laps are a duel between Kevin Cogan and Rahal. Under the caution flag, the drivers behind Cogan fear the race could end this way. But it's a go on lap 197 and a go for a classic finish. Bobby Rahal, driving his March Cosworth, passes Cogan with 2 laps to go, and the finish is the second closest ever. Bobby Rahal wins the 70th running of the Indy 500, averaging 170 miles an hour. Indianapolis is a world removed from Australia. Down under, the most popular auto race is the Australian Grand Prix. The cars are different for the most part. The people are different, but it's still racing. There is nothing quite like the start of a Grand Prix race. The color, the sound, and the people make it an event even the casual fan will enjoy. At the Australian Grand Prix, Keke Rosberg is the early leader. Behind the wheel of Formula One racing, where the slightest mistake and you're off track. Rosberg, our leader, is out with the blown tire. Nigel Mansell is next.
That's Mansell! That is Nigel Mansell! And the car absolutely shattered. He's fighting for control. You can see what's happened. Mansell is out of the race.
Nelson Piquet, winner of the Brazilian, German, and Hungarian Grand Prix, pits, while Alain Prost takes the lead with 15 laps to go. As Mansell watches, Prost wins. in one of his best years on the circuit. It's another victory for Elaine Prost. Racing takes on many forms, from the roar of the engines to the solitude of a single man on a bicycle. It may be the most physically demanding race of them all. It's the Tour de France. The winner is Greg LeMond, the first winner ever from the United States. His challenger and teammate, the great Bernard Hinault of France, the overwhelming favorite, retiring after a legendary career.
Time trial is really what we call the race of the truth. I mean, there's no team tactics, there's nothing involved. It's just the strongest guy wins. And it came at the end of the Tour de France when that's the truest test of all, at the end of the Tour de France.
Even though LeMond falls in the trials here, he was still within 30 seconds of Hinault's time in the trials. Champs-Élysées in Paris is the finish, the culmination of the world's greatest bicycle race, the Tour de France. You're watching the International Year in Sports 86. It is one of the most unique car races in the world, the Great American Race. This year, 96 drivers competed for more than $250,000 in prize money. Ron Hazlett in his 1936 Packard took home the $100,000 first prize check in the 3,500-mile race from Disneyland to New York City. We'll be right back. The States organized a boycott against the 80 Summer Olympics. The Soviet Union did the same in '84. Governments again putting up the barriers that athletes try to tear down. It was Ted Turner's idea that gave us the Goodwill Games. On a beautiful Sunday along many of Moscow's most picturesque boulevards, the marathon is one man against the field. Policeman Bülent Ensemble of Ethiopia winning in 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 42 seconds. One of the closest races comes in the women's 100 meters. Evelyn Ashford is in lane 6, her East German rival in lane 2, and it is a photo finish. Ashford winning after judges review the finish. The Soviet Union would dominate these games, as Robert Emilion did in the long jump, becoming the 6th man in history to surpass 28 feet. The 16-day event took us to every conceivable venue, including the velodrome, and more Soviet victories. By game's end, the Russians would almost triple the United States in gold medals, 118 to 42. In the pole vault, Sergei Bubka would go where no man has gone before. 19 feet 8 3/4 inches and a new world record. The hammer throw was also a battle of two Soviets, Yuri Sechka winning the gold medal with a throw of almost 85 meters. An American victory was expected in the men's 100 meters, but Carl Lewis upset by Canadian Ben Johnson. Johnson wins with the fastest time ever at low altitude, 9.95, 2/10 off the world record. The Goodwill Games will be played in the United States in 1990, and the Americans will be hard-pressed to improve on the Soviet version. Another mega sporting event taking place in the fall of '86, the Asian Games in China and South Korea. Few Westerners have heard of Chinese gymnast Li Ning, but at the Asian Games last fall, he captured 4 gold medals, the first with a 9.75 in the floor exercise. pommeled horse is won by countryman Yang Yushan. Ning wins the silver. Stillness is the gold on the rings, and it's another first for Ning when he wins the gold. Ning is Olympic and world champion at this event. The Chinese domination continues when Lao Yon wins the gold medal in the horse vault. A replay shows that the score could have been higher, but a short landing is caused when Yon's legs separate on the dismount. China's only loss comes in the parallel bars. South Korean Hwan Soon Song winning the gold, much to the approval of the audience in Seoul. In this event, Li Ning finishes sixth. China finishes with a gold medal by Yang Yushan on the high bar, as China dominates gymnastics at the Asian Games. A few days later, it is Japan winning the gold. The event, the 10,000 meters. The winner, Masanori Shitaku, 4 seconds ahead of his Korean challenger. At the podium, Shitaku accepts the congratulations of the silver and bronze medalists. In the women's 400 meters, P.T. Usha of India is victorious. Usha, who barely missed the bronze at the Los Angeles Olympics, wins in a time of 56.08. 2 Chinese win the silver and the bronze. In the men's 400-meter hurdles, the favorite is Ahmad Hamadah from the tiny country of Bahrain. His Asian Games record time, 49.31, as there is no dominant country or individual in the track and field events at the Asian Games. When we were kids, many of us dug holes in the yard trying to reach China. We never made it that way, but athletes from 13 countries used gymnastics to get to Beijing in August. In late August, China's Li Ning proves that he is the lord of the rings and nearly every other apparatus in gymnastics. Ning wins the gold on the pommel horse and shares overall gold medal honors with the great Yuri Korolov of the Soviet Union at the 7th World Cup tournament. Korolov is almost flawless on the high bar. Look at that perfect dismount and a score of 9.80. The women's competition includes 14 gymnasts from 6 countries, including the United States. But it is 17-year-old Yelena Shushnanova winning the gold in extremely tough competition. In the floor exercise, she exhibits the confidence and pure athletic ability that American gymnasts have yet to master. A near-perfect routine and a 9.975 for Shushnanova. From Beijing, we go to Akron, Arizona, and Arkansas Little Rock. The NCAA basketball tournament started with 64 teams, ended with 4 in Dallas. Louisville and Duke play in the championship game in front of more than 16,000 screaming fans. Never nervous, Purvis Ellison, as he will come to be known, is the tournament's most valuable player. He scores 25 points, grabs 11 rebounds, and is only a freshman. Ellison's three-point play with Duke ahead by 4 is the spark that ignites the Cardinals' late rally. And Louisville, which had finished 7th in the final wire service polls, wins the NCAA championship 72-69. On the first night of the first day of the 126th year of college football, the national champion of this game is decided in Miami, Florida, as Barry Switzer's second-ranked Sooners meet Joe Paterno and undefeated Penn State. Touchdown on 3rd and 28 turns this game the Sooners' way. A one-dimensional ground attack now has an Air Force 2. And as usual, the Sooners have a great defense. John Schaefer is Penn State's beleaguered quarterback. Under constant assault, it's Oklahoma's defense that never rests. Penn State tries the tricks, only to see the last laugh is on them when every ball seems to pop into the waiting Oklahoma arms. On this night, the fickle winds of fate make the ball soar true for the Sooners, while Penn State seems to miss the point every time. Lydell Carr scores on the 61-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. The final score is 25-10. The Sooners are first again and national champions. We'll continue on the International Year in Sports 86. But first, let's turn to the pages of the Guinness Book of World Records. The real drama of the '86 baseball season was played out in the league's championship series. But Houston and California are already forgotten because losing is the great American sin. The Boston Red Sox and the New York Mets played in the World Series. Go Mets! It was the cry of a championship-starved crowd at Shea Stadium in New York in October. The Mets and the Boston Red Sox, no doubt the two best teams in baseball in '86. In Game 6, it will take a miracle to keep the Mets alive. Down to their final out, the Mets score 3 runs in the bottom of the 10th to force a decisive Game 7.
Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base. 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buster. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Red Sox manager John McNamara will forever be second-guessed for leaving Bill Buckner at first base and giving the Mets one last chance at glory. In Game 7, Dwight Evans put Boston ahead. And the perfect position for the Mets.
Home run, Dwight Evans.
tie game in the 7th game of the World Series. Ray Knight's solo home run puts New York ahead to stay. With all the superstars on this team, Ray Knight wins the Most Valuable Player award. The crowd at Shea Stadium can barely be contained as the Mets win their first World Series since 1969. The World Series has an international following, but for every hit heard around the world, there are 100 events barely heard around the block. Big or small, they are just as important to those who compete. In the World Lacrosse Finals, USA beat Canada.
They beat the English. They were well beaten at the half, but the Americans continued to pour it off. Final score, Canada losing to the United States in this gold medal final. The Americans win it 18-9.
The President's Cup is the World Championship of curling. It is a popular sport in Canada, and Canada's Ed Lukowich is this year's world champion.
He was right up the broom. It's just a question of weight. He's very close. He's got it. Lukowich, the North. Canada has won the World Men's Curling Championship.
It was mid-October. More than 300 players from 25 Asian countries taking part in the 8-day tournament, the 8th Asian Table Tennis Championship. China won all 7 titles. The Soviet Union has won 19 World Ice Hockey Championships. Only Canada can match that number. The Soviet Union finally reaches its goal and an unprecedented 20th gold medal. It is rare in the 80s for one team to dominate its sport. At the professional level, there are no dynasties anymore. But every now and then, one player rises above all the others. Edmonton couldn't win another Stanley Cup, but Wayne Gretzky was the game's most valuable player for the 7th time. Upsetting Edmonton and the great Gretzky, Calgary from the Campbell Conference and Montreal, the survivor in the Wales Conference, meet in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Into the corner, Bobby Smith. Oh, and a bit of a high stick thrown by Hunter. Now Chelios with Peplinski. Smith grabs onto the arm of Peplinski. Hunter centers. Bozak shoots and scores. Steve Bozak.
Montreal would lose the opening game in the best-of-7 series, but that is all the Canadians will lose in this final. In Game 3, Bobby Smith's goal gives the Canadians the lead. They would hold throughout the series.
Now Naslin. Look at this. The shot by Smith, and they score. Bobby Smith. Bradley.
The defensive work of goalie Patrick Roy is the difference for the Canadians.
McGinnis coming in, intercepts the shot, and Watt saves, centering pass.
The rookie goaltender making 30 saves in Game 5 alone.
And the punt to center ice with 3:22
But this Calgary team, down 4-1, doesn't quit.
With Jamie McCann, look at that effort, keeps it in. In front, they score! Bozak!
That goal makes it 4-2.
5 minutes to go. 4-2 Montreal.
The final goal of the series still leaves Calgary down 4-3.
Calgary trying for the impossible.
And finally, 4 games to 1.
Here is Mullen. He shoots and scores. Joe Mullen. After playing need a goal for overtime. Bozak Mullen.
The Flames' final try for overtime is just inches out of reach.
The rebound. Owen Wall has the puck. Out of the circle, just out
There
of
is
the
still
picture.
time.
Oh, and Montreal wins the big face-off. Oh, Chelios gets the puck.
The Canadians win the face-off, and the Canadians win the cup. 4-1, Montreal's 23rd Stanley Cup.
Champions for the 23rd time, the Montreal Canadiens.
The excellence shown by the Canadiens on the ice is matched on the tennis court by Martina Navratilova as she continues rewriting the record book in women's tennis, winning at Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, and so many others. The men were without their top personality. While John McEnroe sat, Yvonne Lendl proved to be the ace of men's tennis. Lendl's main competition, Boris Becker and little-known Michael Pernfors. Pernfors is the Swede by way of the University of Georgia. Pernfors and Lendl met in the French finals at Paris.
Gee.
Although Pernfors had beaten Becker in the semis, he was no match in the finals. Lendl is known for his serve, but he can cover the court as well, winning the French in straight sets. On the grass at Wimbledon, Becker, who was ranked #1 at the time, used a serve that reached speeds of 156 miles an hour to beat Lendl in straight sets. At the U.S. Open, everyone expected a rematch. Instead, Lendl faced countryman Miroslav Mešír. Mešír's speed was no match for Lendl's power. Some saying the men's game is nothing but power. Lendl wins in another straight set match. The reward. Also taking home the $210,000 that went with his second straight victory at the U.S. Open. It is one of the many talents of the Boston Celtics celebrating. But first, the N.B.A. Finals against the Houston Rockets.
Defense early on. Harris gets free. Tried to take his hand. Here's Bird. 3-on-1 Boston. Pass back Bird. What a pass to McCann.
The unquestioned leader of his team and the game's premier player is Larry Bird.
Bird.
There are very few traditions in America stronger than Celtic pride. And it is a catalyst again for this team's 16th championship. It's no surprise to basketball fans when the Celtics win in 6 games. The reason is Larry Bird. He finishes as the series and the season's most valuable player. You're watching the International Year in Sports 86. And one of the great moments in sport of this year or any year is next. It's been said probably too many times that records are made to be broken. But on that incredible day in April, the Masters at Augusta, a record was made not to be broken. Jack Nicklaus won his 6th Masters and his 20th major championship. In what he himself calls the December of his career, on a course he admits afterward is a young man's tournament. In an age of nostalgia, 46-year-old Jack Nicklaus turns back the hands of time on this Sunday at Augusta. With 10 holes to play, he is 6 behind Spain's Seve Ballesteros. But with birdies at 9, 10, 11, and 13, suddenly the dignified gallery at Augusta is screaming from the pine top. At the par 5 15th, Nicklaus for an eagle. At 16, Nicklaus almost makes a hole-in one. From the hilltop at 15, Ballesteros has witnessed the awakening and pulls his approach into the water. With Nicklaus finishing with a 65 and 5 birdies and an eagle over the final 10 holes, he must wait for Tom Kite to miss left. And for the leader after 3 rounds to bow to history. Greg Norman, the great white shark from Australia, would win the British Open 2 months later. But on this day, the tour's leading money winner in '86 is a pawn for golfing history. On a day when the bear is golden again, when his putter has perfect 20/20 vision, the sight of golfer and caddy, father and son walking off arm in arm is the most unforgettable moment of the most memorable day in Masters history. Jack Nicklaus wins his 6th green jacket and 20th major championship. Another golden oldie is Raymond Floyd. Never a winner in 2 decades at the U.S. Open, but what goes around has finally come to Floyd. A final round 66. And as they did at Augusta, the gallery cheers another of golf's elder putsmen. Raymond Floyd, winner of $115,000 on an American holiday known as Father's Day. The true test of Greg Norman's greatness will be the test of time, and very few pass that test. Jack Nicklaus certainly has, and so too has Willie Shoemaker. He is a 17-to-1 long shot. Ferdinand takes the first leg of horse racing's Triple Crown. An even bigger long shot is in the irons, 54-year-old Willie Shoemaker.
To be honest with you, I thought, well, old Jack Nicklaus did it, and here I did it too. That's exactly what I thought. Oh, mine.
In a spring of great revival, Shoemaker wins his 4th Derby, but his first after a 20-year drought. The Irish Derby to the American racing fan has the horses running the wrong way. The first Irish Derby was run on a June day in 1866. But on this day in June in Dublin, the winner is Shah Rustani. Horse racing is considered to be the sport of kings and the very rich, just as those who are seeking America's Cup. She is Stars and Stripes, Dennis Connor's yacht at the America's Cup, and one of the ships hoping to regain the beloved cup from the Aussies. Near Sydney, the trials continue to determine if America can regain the trophy she had held for more than 100 years, until it became property of Australia 3 summers ago. And we won't know the outcome until the summer of 1987. It would be impossible to end the year in sports without remembering those who don't hear the cheers anymore. People like Flo Hyman, maybe the world's best volleyball player who died of a rare heart disease at 31. John Bassett, owner of the Tampa Bay Bandits, father of tennis star Carling Bassett, dead at 47, cancer. Bobby Lane, dead at 59. It was his friend Doak Walker who said Bobby Lane never lost a game, time just ran out on him. But the 2 deaths that affected us most in '86 were those of Lynn Baez and Don Rogers, 2 young, promising athletes dead because of cocaine. But as tragic as those deaths were, we have seen an international awareness now of how illegal drugs can destroy the athletes we cheer. And as a result, we are seeing athletes all over the world speak out against drug abuse. And by doing that, they contribute more to our world than any game they play. It's been said that sports is the toy department of life. Now we know sports means a great deal more than that. I'm Dale Hansen for the International Year in Sports '86.
The Year in Sports '86 has been produced in association with Adidas, the world's largest manufacturer of athletic footwear and apparel, and sponsored in part by the 1987 Chevy trucks, because nothing works like a Chevy truck. Nothing.